So I don't think you can do that either. I think there might be a limit on transfer. There may not be any transfers. It depends on how the bill is constructed for New York. But the problem is New Yorkers don't really understand, because they'll say, oh, it's public dollars going into this. Well, issues are being decided. Somebody asked this morning about the insurance companies. Well, insurance companies contribute a lot of money to candidates. Do you think that some of those lobbying aspects don't have some something for somebody? I don't know. And I remember hearing John McCain, when he was running, not for president, I don't think, but he was on a television show. He was talking about ethics, and he was talking about the changes that needed to be made, and that was about health care, I think, on a federal level. He said, if you ever want to change things really in Washington, you've got to get the money out of the system, because it's just not, it's not helping us. And I admired him for all of what he was able to do. I really kind of always admired him. Yes, way in the back. Did you have a meeting this morning here in Peekskill?
I don't know.
No, because there was a meeting in Peekskill this morning of a community group. Okay, you're not a part of that. No. Okay.
My question is with regards to Bill S1278, I think, back-end automatic voter registration. We've made a lot of great progress with election reform, including making primaries, federal election days on the same day, no excuse absentee ballot, absentee voting, and early voting. But another sorely needed election reform in New York State is automatic voter registration.
I'm sorry I left that out of the list, because we passed, it has to be a constitutional amendment, because our Constitution says we can't do that. So we have to, that will be on the ballot. We voted on it this year, so this is 2019. You can't vote on it next year because we're the same legislative session. We have to vote on it the next year. So in 2021, hopefully there will be a yes vote on that, and then it will go out to the public in November for a vote, along with the absentee ballot one.
So this won't be possible for another couple of years?
No.
So is it currently sitting in committee right now?
No, we voted it out. We voted it out. But it has to be, we voted on it. The governor doesn't have to sign it because it's constitutional amendment. He doesn't have to sign those. So each of our houses voted on it the second week of January, and but it has to go through that constitutional process.
Okay, thank you. I also have a question regarding Bill 80028.
I'm glad you know the bill numbers. What's it about?
It's a bill that you sponsored, actually.
Okay.
On behalf of my friend Connor, I think. You've been very responsive to our calls and emails, and we appreciate that. But I'm wondering the status of that bill as well. I think it allows you to change party affiliation within 25 days of an election.
Oh, yes. I actually asked that question on my newsletter, too, because I think it's an intriguing one. What do we do? I mean, we're all thinking, basically the time we really think about that is presidential, isn't it? I mean, more so than other times, I guess. I mean, it could be that, it's not just then. It's I guess, so somebody's registered in a party, and all of a sudden they want to change parties, and now you have to change, in order to vote in a primary in another party, you would have had to change before the November election this past year. So if you want to vote in a primary in June, and you want to be, in a Democratic primary, Republican primary, Conservative, whatever, you can't do it unless you're in that party, before the last election. We definitely need to push that up. I don't know how far we do it, whether we do, you said 25 days before an election. Yeah, that you can change it. I mean, there's, I really do want to hear from people, because there can be pros and cons, because, people can play games, I suppose, with that a little bit. But other states, we look at these early states, New Hampshire and other states that everybody seems to vote in everybody's primary. They're allowed to vote in any, so that's one issue. Can you just vote in any primary? Or do we set it up that so many days before? We talked about it last year, maybe moving it up to 60 days before an election. I don't know where we're going to go on this. That's going to be, you know,
That's amazing.
discussion
You
for
have
later on.
You have a 2-to-1 majority in
yeah.
this state. Everything's Democrat.
Yes. All right,
And you want
Ed.
to take over the few parties that are left by allowing people like Albany, where the Democratic Party took over the
Right.
Conservative Party,
You know,
to
the-
take over the
Ed.
few parties that are left.
We're not here to
Even
hear
though you
you.
have
You already
overwhelming,
host your own meeting.
you already did speak.
Run for office, buddy.
Overwhelming majority in the state.
Run for office.
You can't stand free speech.
Free choice.
You can't stand free speech.
Just like to say,
Okay, in the back. All right, let's be quiet. Let's be
my father has been Republican for his whole life since he was 18, and he wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders in 2016, couldn't, and he just registered as Democrat.
Where does your father live?
Cold Spring.
Oh, in Cold Spring. Okay, not in, okay.
So
He can always write his name in.
he
He can always write his name in. He
Ed,
can always vote for
Ed,
him.
please stop.
He
Write
wanted
his
to
name
vote for
in.
Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary, couldn't. My whole family couldn't. I couldn't. I changed mine last year. I couldn't vote in the primary for 2018. I changed it in April, but I couldn't vote in it.
Right.
And that's unfair. You know, that's 6 months in advance. My father just changed it last month because he was renewing his driver's license. And I said, under the current laws, you still can't vote in the 2020 primary because that's the law. And
No, he could vote in the 2020 because he's done it before
No, I don't
November
believe so.
the 2019.
Is there an election in 2019?
Well, yeah. Yes, so yes, they're local elections, So he's okay, but a lot of people aren't, and they don't think about it, you know, and they get engaged. Well, that's why, you know, having same-day registration, some people don't like that, but there are a lot of people, most people are registered, so it wouldn't really matter, but there's some people that might get all engaged on issues toward the end of campaigns and listening to people. And, you know, I think we should allow that to happen as long as we have a system, and we have to have like electronic registration lists so we can look up to be sure that people haven't voted and they are registered, and we're going to get to that point. So I have some civic leaders that are just leaving, and I hope they gain something from this experience. Bye. Hopefully they will vote when they get to be of the right age, and they will register. Well, actually, registering in a party is really probably the best thing to do because you get to vote in primaries. If you're not registered in a party, you don't really get to vote in those primaries and get your say. Yes.
Thanks. I wanted to just weigh in on the plastic bags.
Oh, okay.
Please ban them. You know,
Right.
do it in conjunction with the big giveaways of reusable bags. You know, they're all over the streets, the trees, the landfills, all the oil. It's just way past time to do it. They did it in Ireland like 20 years ago. Life went on, and you know, so please push that. Also, the 6-to-1 matching in the city is a great program. If that's something that can be done.
The public financing.
Yeah, I mean,
6 to 1
candidates
match.
can run for office. You can give $25 and it actually makes a difference because it's 6-to-1 matching. It's only up to a certain level. You have to be in the district, so there's no outside influence. So it's a great program.
Right. Let's go back to the recycled bags. It's in the budget to ban them, the single
Is
use.
it going to be a tax or is the store going to?
They can't have them.
Just
They
COVID
can't
ban.
have them, other than, I
Yeah.
think I said
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
you know, with just specific items, but it would be banned. So with the view toward people starting to bring other bags in with them that are reusable.
Yes.
And I have a feeling if we go in that direction, there are going to be a lot of groups that have, you know, bags that they give out. When I go to these senior forums or fairs, village fairs, town fairs, whatever, all the groups now seem to be giving out a bag that you can use because they put their advertisement on it. And you're walking around. I mean, I used to have plastic bags, which was not good anymore, with my name on it. It was great. You know, you just walk around and everybody, it's an advertising tool. So I think that will happen. Whether it will be in the budget or not, I don't know. We haven't had a lot of discussion in Albany, but we've had a lot of people down here quite interested in the topic, and then whether we charge for paper bags.
And I do think it's important to
the state, should do bag giveaways in conjunction so that anyone who feels like it's a regressive tax or, burden on lower income people, bags should just be, available to get.
Right.
We have a Planned Parenthood bag.
Yeah, you can have, well, the town, somebody came to my
They give
office
a
the
lot
other
of them
day, and he had a town of Portland bag that had been handed out, and that was terrific, and they handed that out at some event. Yes?
How much does the governor and yourself take into account the science behind global science, global warming and so forth, and environment? How much is emphasis and how much do you understand the science behind it? Do you pay attention to the science behind it? I have two questions. That's my first.
Okay, on the whole climate issue, we've had a lot of like roundtable discussions in Albany. I'm not on the environmental committee, but they have had a number of those on climate change. The governor has, we actually have a goal of trying to get to almost 100% renewable energy by 2030. That's a very tough goal, but it's a goal. And I think you may have noticed about Con Edison not having enough gas for pipelines in southern Westchester, middle and southern Westchester. It may sneak up to us. We're not affected yet, but if Peekskill, Ramona's there from Peekskill, if you have a big project that's going up and you don't have approval yet from Con Ed to get a gas pipeline in to get your heat, they will not approve it unless you have it all in by March 15th. So we're really under a lot of pressure on that. But the goal is to have people do geothermal, to put solar. I can't tell you, I keep seeing people with solar on their roofs just kind of popping up, which is really, really good. And, so the issue is, so the issue is to, all right.
25% electricity with
sorry.
solar and wind.
Okay.
Come on, why don't we get real?
At some point, we're going to have
Why
to
don't you
ask
get
some
real?
people to leave that interrupt all the time.
My second question regarding the science.
I thought you were only taking one question. I've been having my hand up for a half hour, and you didn't answer my question.
Okay. My second question is, if you believe in all this science, why don't you believe in the science that's coming out now on the unborn human being in the womb? All the science that's out there now says it's a human being. It's not just a fetus. It's not just a piece of tissue. I'm very, I came here today because I'm so disappointed in the healthcare thing that the president pushed through without debate, and you are voting for it. I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, but I'm an independent. And you believe in the science in one case, but you don't believe in the science in the other case. I'm not talking politics.
Just so you know, at all of my town meetings, when anybody's asked me this, I've always said that I'm a legislator. I've always been this way, pro-choice. I feel that everybody has their right to make the decision for themselves. I could have one view. I'm not too, as an elected official, I'm not supporting a religion. I don't support. I can't. I have to vote for government. I can't vote for religions. And there's some people. Some people have a religious perspective. Other people do not, or they're in another religion and they have a different perspective. And if a person does not want to have an abortion, they should not. But we are allowing people the opportunity. You probably didn't like Roe v. Wade, but Roe v. Wade is still in existence. We do have a handout on this, Andrew, if anybody wants it, to show in 1970, under Governor Rockefeller, and with the Republican legislature, they adopted the first bill, I think, ever in the country, and it was an abortion bill in 1970, but they allowed, it was talking about the life of the mother, not the health of the mother. Then Roe v. Wade came along on a national level, and they said it's for the life of the mother or the health of the mother, and allowed same 24 weeks, and so that was the law of the land. And I think at most of my town meetings, Many people don't like the law of the land, but I do, because it gives everybody the right to choose. So what we did in Albany this year, we said we're doing the same thing as Roe v. Wade. It's 24 weeks, and it's about the life and the health of the mother. It does add, if it is a non-viable fetus, hasn't been born, non-viable fetus, and it's the 24 weeks, and you know, the majority of abortions take place,
9 months.
99% take place by 21 weeks. So it's not,
That's not
at
true.
the very, yes, it is true, it is true. And so at the very end, you know, for me, it's about a woman talking to their doctor, talking to their
Now it's
family.
not even a doctor.
Making a decision. It is
Now
a
it's not even
doctor.
a doctor.
The only person that can do a surgical procedure is a physician or a physician assistant that has under his scope of work. And if it's a physician assistant, they have to be under the supervision of the physician. Back in 1970, we did not have physician assistants. You may go to doctors now and you know that you're working with physician assistants, sometimes nurse practitioners. But nobody else can perform a surgical process. Midwives and nurses can work with drug in the early part of the stages, but they cannot do surgical. So it's not the right information that's going out. But you know, it does, to me, it's just about people. I don't know who, I have 2 wonderful children. I never even thought about an abortion. I never thought about not having healthy children. I should have thought about not having healthy children, but I was lucky, and it was back then. But I never had to go through that. And to tell you the truth, nobody's ever come to me and said they had an abortion, except up in Albany. People have stopped and said about the agonizing time that they went through. And I didn't have to go through that. But I know a lot of people out there, and I work for all my constituents. I don't know what their situation is. And I'm not going to say that they can't do this or they can't do that because I don't know their situation. So,
Now, if you had hearings, you would know what the situation is. But you had no hearing.
right.
No hearing from a life and death
Stop
issue.
talking.
Okay.
Stop
Worst
talking.
piece of legislation.
Nobody called on you.
Enough.
Nobody called on you.
I don't need to be called on.
Yes, you do. You know, sometimes some people are advocates for a cause that encourage people to go in the other direction because of their behavior. I used to be a teacher, and I'm sorry, there's some behavior that I don't call on people with certain kinds of behavior. It's just, okay.
First of all, thank you for coming to our lovely town of City of Peekskill.
City of Peekskill, yes.
And thank you for everybody being here. This is the first town hall meeting I've been at.
Oh, people ask, what is the town hall meeting?
Well,
Yes, you know.
And I just wanted to address one point of fact in the recent abortion legislation. So, as I understand, it doesn't have to be a doctor. It could be a nurse practitioner.
No,
it can
no.
be a-
For surgical, you're talking about
Right,
surgical?
surgical.
Only a physician or physician assistant
Physician.
under the jurisdiction of a physician and within the scope of practice as a part of the New York State health law.
Okay. So, does that late-term abortion fall into that category?
It would be, if that's a surgical procedure, it would be under a physician.
Okay.
Yes.
So here's my question. Could you describe for us the procedure so we could comprehend where medical, because some things I would not go to a nurse practitioner for. I would insist on an MD. So could you just describe the procedure so we can get a sense of what kind of expertise might be needed there?
I'm not a doctor, I can't do
Well, you
that.
voted.
I'm not a doctor. But I want everybody to be able to speak with their doctor. When you
Right,
have
but
when
you
you have a
voted
medical
that
issue,
now these
you're to
people
speak with your
are
doctor
permitted.
and to find out
So
what the
now these
procedures
other
would be.
people would be permitted to do the procedure. I just wanted to know.
No,
She just said
If
no.
they could be-
They
They
can't.
would be
Midwives
qualified.
and nurses cannot do the
They
procedure.
cannot do it, a PA can't do it either.
Right.
Against the law, they can't do any surgical procedure.
Who can't?
A PA.
No, they can't.
They can't.
No,
Right,
no.
so you
So
just
it's a
said,
doctor, it's a physician.
Unless
They
you're
can
having
assist.
It's a
rotating.
physician, they can assist, right.
They can't actually perform it.
so, but I thought that
It's
you just
within
said-
their scope of practice.
Right, so even if it's, so that's what I was kind of curious about. What exactly procedure are we talking about? And that would kind of help me understand those
General
ramifications.
abortion, it's not a specific type of, I don't think it's classified as a specific
If a
type of.
non-doctor did it, he wouldn't go
Anyway.
to jail.
All right, but again, it's, if you're a patient, whatever the issue is, whatever your whatever you go to a doctor for, you sit down and you have a discussion. I mean, I leave doctors that won't discuss. If they don't discuss with me what I want to discuss, I don't go to them. So you sit down with the doctor, and maybe you get several opinions and find out what they say. But that's a medical, I'm not a doctor.
You're 13 years old, that ought to be an
Okay.
interesting conversation.
So I know that it is against the law for non-doctors to do something.
Yes, and they would be
So if,
penalized.
so what is it, I guess my question is, because I'm a little unclear on this point, what is it that changed about the landscape of who's allowed to do abortions in the late term with this bill?
Nothing really, because,
Nothing really, or nothing?
no, because it's just, we've always said a physician could do it. In 1970, a physician could do it. Under Roe v. Wade, a physician could.
But what's now?
Physician assistants are somewhat a new thing as of like 20 years ago, I guess. And they work under the scope of practice. Well, they have a scope of practice, but they work under a physician. So that's the only difference, is we never had physician assistants back in 1970, so we couldn't have put them in the New York State law. The New York State law wasn't a really law because it was superseded by Roe v. Wade on a federal level. So we really didn't have a law that it was an old law. It's like the death penalty is still on the books, but it's not a real law because we had a court proceeding that said we don't have the death
Sandy, this
penalty in
is
New York.
misleading.
But it's
You overturned a
it's still
1975
it's
law,
still
which is
on the
5 years
list.
later. This is misleading, as usual.
Is there an opportunity now? Maddie's just handing out something to show you the 1970, 1973, and what we just did, this last week. And it really is following in the pattern of Roe v. Wade. Yes, back there? Yeah, either way. Change the topic. New person.
First, just a comment about the mention you made before about the citizen oversight board, which
Right.
everyone who doesn't know is really an attempt to allow voters to have some impact on what's going on with the closure of the point. Decommissioning is a big, serious issue. The issue that you brought up, this was envisioned as a regional grouping. So I don't think it's going to be a big impact on travel expenses. And I certainly hope that can be ironed. I'm sure that can be ironed out because
Right,
we're certainly
right.
very happy to have this much with the
Right.
bill. Secondly, about the Con Edison series of, what shall we call them, announcements in the last couple of weeks. This is clearly, to me, an opportunity for them to plead for the right to have a pipeline, transverse pipeline, to give them whatever's being conveyed through the AIM pipeline, that we have been subject to environmental risk because of the building of that pipeline at Indian Point. Give them the option of having their own pipeline transfers from that leader. This, to me, is an opportunity, perfect opportunity for us to really push for renewables. How do you feel about that, and what can you do to impact on this? There is a public hearing, by the way, on Wednesday in White Plains about this, Public Service Commission.
Right.
This could be the best opportunity that we've seen in a long time to jump in and really start to put our energy behind what we're saying. It's one thing to talk about going renewable, but we've got to really make it happen.
Well, I think that may be why there's so much pressure from the Public Service Commission on Con Ed about this. But, and that's good for us to say up here, and we need to go in that direction. But if you were in Mount Vernon and Yonkers and New Rochelle and you had all these development projects, it would be like if Peekskill had this development project just ready to go and they knew that they're going to get lots of revenues and jobs and so on, you kind of cringe that I'm not going to have any power to be able to get this going. But I did hear the other day if they're willing to do interruptible power, which my understanding is that they can, make some changes during the day and their usage and so on, that maybe they would get then permission to do it. And if they can get some geothermal going, I mean, we've had good and bad things about geothermal. So it really is a good chance with all this pressure. It's just that if you were the community leader and it worked for years, and you got these projects going, and you're downtown, and you can just, the visions of all this grandeur, and, you know, all of a sudden it goes away. Because the problem we had with Con Ed is, we read about it in the paper. I mean, this is a little bit like closing Indian Point, we read about it in the paper. Same thing, it was just in the paper. We really didn't, you know, Con Ed had really never said to any of us, and they could have said, with Algonquin going on, and our battle against that, they could have said, why are you battling this? Because maybe we could get some of the gas from there. But they were silent. I mean, did we hear anything from them about we're going to have a problem with the volume?
But this helps them keep us hostage, and I think the
Right.
fact is, we really need to get the message out that methane, whatever you want to call it, a bridge fuel, is not natural, and it is
Right.
over 80 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon. So we're kidding ourselves. We've got to really cut those ties.
Right. And this is it. And we may have, you know, they may say to us in 6 months that we don't have enough power up here too, or that we don't have enough gas coming through the lines. Yes?
Hi. Just want to get back for a moment to the driver's license issue. I don't know what the time frame is for passing or not passing.
There's
that.
actually no
time frame. Would there be money in the budget to implement that were it to pass, or is part of the, I don't
That's
even know. if it's-
interesting. I mean, people are going to have to pay to get the license, so it may just be, it could be a wash. But it could be if you have a number of people that are going to have to take on-road tests.
Right.
That might be a little bit, there might have to be some more instructors or so on. That I don't know. We'll have to ask the department. I'm going to call somebody actually about the bill, so I'll ask about if there would be costs. I didn't anticipate that there would be, but
I don't know.
you know,
That's
there
why I was
could.
asking
Usually
you.
we cover, you know, when you get you may not like to pay for your driver's license plates and so on, but we usually cover the costs and all that stuff.
Okay, and I just wanted to say, along with the person who is behind me, that I look at this not as much of an immigration issue as a public safety issue. I wouldn't want anyone on the road without a driver's license.
Right.
Regardless of their status.
Right. And, you know, we've been a lot stronger, by the way, about DWIs.
Right.
A lot stronger. And getting people not to have licenses, which is also safety on a roads. Not good for the person at the other end, but,
Right.
you know, by a couple of times they should have learned. So there was somebody back here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question about children who are at risk. Now that the Raise the Age legislation has been passed and is being implemented, my questions are these two. One, is the legislation being fully funded for the next year? And I was afraid you were going to say that. And my second question is it true that for people, children who are labeled persons in need of supervision or PINs, has the governor taken out all of the money that would otherwise have been in the budget in order to provide them with needed placement services to hopefully divert them from ever coming into the juvenile justice system?
All right. Okay. On that, I don't think, I mean, when we did raise the age, it means that we have to have a number of new facilities and so on established, and there is pressure on county government to do a lot of the work. So I know that the county has been up, and we just met with them yesterday, Westchester County, and we need to put more money into the program. But it's, you know, any of these big program changes take a little bit of time to get implemented and so on. We'd have to find out, if you could just maybe call our office, and we'll try to digest the part of the budget that you asked with pins and so on. We never have enough, you know, to tell you the truth, we never have enough money in our budget for most of our programs. I mean, because there are always more people. Yeah.
All right. Let's have a meeting here.
Are we okay?
On the list like adults.
All right. Now, is there somebody that you haven't asked?
Yeah, I want to go back to the single-payer health care
Okay.
and specifically the issue of the Governor's Commission on Universal Health Care, which is in the budget of the governor and both houses of the legislature. You already mentioned your interest in seeing the two houses of the legislature join in 20 members. That takes care of my biggest complaint, which is that if it's appointed, if everybody's appointed by the governor, you know the only outcome they'll come to is let's wait and hope that the federal government does something with the governor's position. The other two things that I have a problem with about it, one of them is that the report, as it's written, would go just to the governor. And we've all seen reports go to the governor and never come back out again. So that's not.
What reports have gone to the governor and haven't come out?
The Commission? There was a report.
You're fired.
There was a report on pipeline safety that was held up by the governor for
Well, it
several years.
finally got out,
It
right? Finally got out.
After-
Finally,
Right.
like 2
So-
years later.
I think it would be a lot better if the report went, I'd like to see it go to the public, at least it should go to the legislature, not just the governor. And the third thing is that in the governor's version
Well,
of
the
the.
report, by the way, the report on recreational marijuana did get out, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Since he's in favor. So then the third piece of that is that in the governor's version of this commission, he calls for, one of the major objectives is to strengthen commercial insurance in New York State. And it might be that commercial insurance would be a part of the solution, but it's also clear that commercial insurance is part of the problem.
Right.
And to have the commission start off with the objective of strengthening the place the problem might be coming from, that shouldn't be a given. That should, if the commission wants to find that answer, I'll disagree with it, but it shouldn't be a given going in.
Very
That's
good
all I
point.
have to say
Very
about
good
that. I
point.
just wanted to throw in another comment about, you mentioned things in order to make some of the voting improvements happen.
We want more people to vote.
Yeah.
You know,
The
60% or less is not good enough, yeah.
Okay, but I have a red flag, and
Okay.
that's, you mentioned moving towards a more central, coordinated electronic voter registration process, and that's good.
No.
But it also increases, not.
Just for the early voting, I think
Okay,
maybe
yeah, for
it's
that
the early
objective.
voting.
But my concern is, as a person who's worked with computer security, New York State is one of the best states in terms of the ability of our voting process to resist cyber attacks. The more you centralize and computerize the voter registration rolls, it creates a vulnerability, and the people who do that should have as one of their highest priorities to keep it safe.
We have discussed that about the electronic polling books, you know, whether that would be a problem, which it could be a problem. But it's also a problem, I mean, you've got to know whether somebody, I saw a demonstration up in Albany last week with ES&S, which stands for ES&S, their voting company. And it was interesting because they'd take like a piece of paper and you'd have your ballot on it, and then you would, you walked in, I guess you had a number on the ballot, you put this little piece of paper in, and then you programmed how you were going to vote, and you could see it on there. And then when you pushed it in to vote, lights came up if you had voted before, or if you'd done an absentee ballot vote, so it would reject that vote, which I thought was interesting. Because I've always wondered, I know, because as I said, I vote absentee with the schools, and then sometimes my son is on the absentee school board, so I rush down because I want to see what happened. And then I rush down and I think, you know, did my vote counted? I know, I hope. But you always have that feeling, well, you're there in the place, and I shouldn't have done actually illegal voting absentee when I'm in the room. But I didn't know whether I'd be in the room, and I never know with snow and all that kind of stuff. Well, snow doesn't happen in May, so it's not snow, but whatever. It was snow last week. So yeah, I just we have to be sure that everybody votes correctly. But the early voting, and that's going to be, I mean, it's not, you wouldn't want to have early voting with all of the different polling places that we have now. That would be a waste of time. Because just think of the primaries when we do it at every every single thing, which we will do this year, but next year we'll do the early voting. And I don't know how the primary will look. But, you know, you might have 20 people in for the day, and it's really hard for the workers, and it's kind of a waste of money. It is sometimes good democratic policy to have it close by, but, you know, so we'll have to evaluate each one of those things. And you probably can have your input as the Board of Legislators and the county board are making decisions. They're probably going to reach out to your communities about where it should go, and so the public can have some opinions, and I know that always somewhat becomes controversial. Now, I've been putting a bill in, just so you know, on election law because the school boards came to me, and you know, in our schools, we have security. And when you walk in, you got to sign a thing, you got to put a badge on, whatever you have to do to get into the schools. But on election day, by election law, whatever law, we can't ask people to sign in. So sign in at the school for protection. So we're just kind of letting everybody in and out of the door while the kids are there at school. So the schools, and I don't know how this is going to work in Peekskill, how many schools are used for polling, but they would not like to have their schools used for polling places. They would rather have other places for security of the children. And I actually think that's a good idea. It may become complicated, and there may be some schools that don't mind it because they have, maybe their gym is cordoned off or whatever, so it's okay. They can keep people out of there, whatever it is. But, you know, so that's another issue that's kind of come up about where we are using. And, you know, after all of these terrible disasters in our schools, we're just, you know, the security is that much greater. And we've actually contributed money in our budgets to help schools with their security, which is important. So, yes.
First of all, a lot of times the schools, they end up closing school, they just have staff in those days. And since teachers tend to owe a certain number of staff-only days, they use election day for one of those. My question is totally different. It's about toothpaste.
It's about toothpaste.
Right now, how do
we
we
could
get,
use a little humor,
now,
but I don't think it's going to be humorous.
I do. It's a little different. I'm not changing the subject. Right now, you can't use food stamps or SNAP or WIC or any of those public assistance to purchase toothpaste. You can use it for, and who would we have to talk to? What's the best committee to take that to in Albany to get toothpaste to be an approved product under SNAP?
Under SNAP. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had to, we would pass legislation. I mean, I could just see the board light up on toothpaste and whatever. But there might be a better route.
Like 8, so we couldn't figure out who would take that to.
Yeah, we have to change the format. But
I mean, it's all part of winning in nutrition. Unless you can eat the toothpaste.
it's not edible.
You can eat it, yeah, I guess so.
Right, but the FDA probably is involved, so it's sort of.
Right, right. We'll look into that, okay? You know, we've added things, in different places to correct.
Families choose between purchasing food or purchasing toothpaste at a certain point because things like toothpaste take cash. You don't have to have cash in hand.
Right.
And they can't get public assistance.
But you could have prepared food, which would be nice on SNAP. Things that have already been cooked, especially the homeless who have no kitchen to cook.
Right.
So I think some fast foods are doing it now, SNAP. I don't know. That's something you can do.
Right, you can look into SNAP,
Because
yeah.
all you have, a lot of the churches in the city opens up the kitchen for the people to come in and cook.
Right.
Because you can't buy prepared food. You should be able to.
Okay.
It takes a whole different ballgame.
So we want to get back to you, so just be sure that Maddie or Andrew have your contact information. That would be great. Yes? Hello.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman, for having your town hall here. We really appreciate you coming to Peekskill.
Are you enjoying being a council person?
Oh, yes, I'm enjoying it very much so. So my question, I actually wanted to go back to driver's licenses. I really appreciate you having that question on your survey, and I was hoping that maybe you could speak to possibly your reservations on the bill as well as maybe the concerns you've heard from the public, because I do think that there is a need for an educational component to be mixed in here, because a lot of people don't know that the DMV, we've all been moved into this tier system for our licenses. So just like there's a commercial license and a regular driver's license, they've turned it into a tier system where it would make it very easy for us to accept the green light or the driver's licenses bill. And what folks don't know is that those that are undocumented and would be getting a driver's license would be a limited license, meaning they can't use it for federal purposes. They can't get on the airplane and travel to Florida or travel anywhere else. It would strictly be just so they can have a license, so they would be able to take the driver's test, so they would have the ability to be insured, and just make our roads overall safer. So I'm just wondering.
I think that that's true, and that's an educational component. It's just so hard to get all of that out, because I would say the resistance with people that have called me and talked with me about it is, it's just that they feel that people have come to our country illegally, and so I think the issue of this doesn't really matter. It's the general philosophy that may not be everybody's, and there may be, fine tuning of that, but I think that's it. That it's just, if you're not here legally, because I had a discussion about the Dreamers at the Hen Hud Library, and and I understand that issue, because that's people are going to college and they're having to spend a lot of money for their kids to go to college, and then we said kids that came here not because they wanted to, their parents dragged them here because their parents wanted to be here, that we are now allowing them to be able to access some of the higher education programs, and also to have, we also put in a funding source that people can contribute to for them. But people just generally feel that they're not here legally. I think that's the issue. I don't know whether you feel, I just feel like either you believe that we're not going to give anybody that's here illegally anything, or we're going to give them something, and there could be people that say all rights. So I think you have gradations probably on this. But this, the driver's license, to me, even if you didn't care about, if you didn't like illegal immigrants, people are on the road, especially in a northern Westchester, especially in a rural area. In the city, they're on the subway, you don't know it, But here, people are driving. I've had people in my office, they're picking up their kids at school when they're sick and whatever. And so they're on the road. So the question is, do we want safe people on the road? And do we, we look in the window, we don't know where they're from. We just don't know. But we want to be sure that everybody knows the rules of the road, and to me, have a test, know how to drive. So I want to be sure that the bill says you got to know how to drive. You have to do the test, because when we re-looked at it yesterday, right, Andrew, it was a little like the DMV can exempt that part of it. I think that's how they said it, right?
Definitely not. I've taken a look at the bill myself, and you definitely would have to take a driver's license.
Yeah, I want to be sure that they do. Driver's test means the written and the practical on the road.
And I believe you were a co-sponsor.
Yes, but the bill keeps changing. See, what happens, I think that was like the earlier question, or the other questions, when do we do things? And things change, so you have to keep looking at them, because some other group has come in and wants something else, and it changes. So, you have to kind of relook at everything. We reintroduce everything after the election, then we start a new session. And so we're in the first of 2 years, and we renew bills, we put them in, but we look them over and we change them. I'm doing that with my bills. I'm, changing bills as I go along. So somebody could have been on a bill, but then they look at the bill and say, oh, wait a minute, that person changed it. So I want to be sure it's used for what the purpose is, and as you said very well, it's only for driving and nothing else, and there are the gradations.
How long are you going to make your hold your hand up for?
Well, I'm going to call on people that haven't had a question.
She's had her hand up for a half hour.
Well, she's been at my other meetings and spoken. So,
how about showing a little respect?
Okay.
How about you show it?
Okay, then.
Yes. Way in the back.
By the way, I moved here 17 years ago, and the first political thing that I got involved with, I went to one of your town hall meetings, and I respect and admire you greatly for your commitment to uphold your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have you got involved in lots of stuff?
I started to, yeah.
Okay,
I had
good.
to take a little hiatus, but I'm back. Back in October, Latimer announced a crisis stabilization hub, crisis intervention teams, to be developed in Westchester County. From what my understanding is, there's only one, which is in Harrison, that serves our 500 square mile area. And I'm wondering if you know where, because there's one opening in White Plains, if you know where the other locations are. And if you don't, how can Peekskill apply to be a focus of a crisis intervention team?
That's very interesting. Does anybody in the audience have an answer? I don't know.
I would guess White Plains.
You know, White Plains often.
The question was, because I couldn't hear.
Yeah, for a crisis intervention.
Similar to what the gentleman said, where would what committee, who would I go to advocate for people to have one of those interventions?
Right. Well, me is a good person, and you know, you again give us your name and perspective, how we can get back to you. We'll try to find out. Often, what happens is that when there are services, Peekskill doesn't always get. Sometimes Peekskill does because you got the veteran service, but you lost the workers' comp, and the workers' comp went to White Plains. And, you know, some of this is economics. You know, I think probably the goal would be to have always something in northern Westchester. So there may be something in Mount Kisco considered northern Westchester. So more the center of the county.
In the Senate, there's a mental health committee.
Yes.
That's chaired, I just read it, but I don't remember.
It's
by
David
whom.
Carlucci, I think, is mental health.
Okay, so.
He's in Rockland, but he has Osney. He has Osney.
That might be a good person to reach out.
Yeah, that would be a good person to reach out. Yeah, definitely. But sometimes it's just these, you know, they get, you know, basically it's about money and having enough staffing and so on and whatever, and where you put everything. So we also advertise a lot 211, which is, it's a United Way number. You can call 211 anytime and you can ask that question, and we should ask that right now to find out where it is. But they do a wonderful job of telling everybody where services are, and especially on the weekends, because people become homeless on weekends. People have problems on weekends. People have holidays, Christmas. I mean, my phone number is in the book. So there isn't a book anymore, I guess, but my phone number is in the whatever. It's like, I can't get used to this world. Anyway, yes.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being here. It's been some time with President Peekskill and talk to them. You've been doing it for a number of years, and with your patience and leadership, I certainly see how and why. So I appreciate that. I have to remove myself, I believe, but I do want to tell, like I mentioned earlier, please, you know, I've been with the county legislature 2 weeks back, so please continue to fight.
Right.
I feel like I'm a prime example to the children in my community now of the possibilities, and I love letting them know that I came from the youth bureau, I came from the after-school program, I came from the college center.
They gave you all those great experiences, right?
Yeah,
and opportunities.
You know, continue to advocate for that so we don't lose any of those programs, especially our youth bureaus. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, question about.
I just want to add a little bit to the energy policy item, because on Friday, the PSC just passed a non-pipeline solution proposal, which includes geothermal, heat pumps, demand-side energy efficiency, which Con Edison put in. And in that discussion, one of the commissioners, I forget her name, is a female commissioner, she talked about how we knew that this was coming, that the pipeline issue was going to be coming, and she went into like a whole big thing back to how New York City was getting rid of oil and pushing natural gas, and the history behind it. So it's really interesting. So anybody who's interested in like the renewables, I certainly am. I am, by just full disclosure, a Con Edison employee as well, and I have solar on my house, and I'm a big fan of renewables. And so that is something that will be really interesting to see how it rolls out, and because it's something like a $200 million program, and will offset some of the stuff that's going on down county. And they just passed it like Friday, like Thursday or something like that.
Right. Okay. Does anybody have another question? Then we'll let two people here speak. Another question on another topic. Another topic?
Well,
Any topic.
thank you, yeah, thank you for,
And you like being a councilman.
yes. And because I want to say thank you, especially to you, for bringing that kind of town hall here. My neighbor here, she said this is the first time that she came to the town hall, my first town hall. It was the last year with you, right here in this place, so. And I want to spend the thank you that Mayor Rainey said to you before, because the supporting that you are doing to find funding to the kids, especially for the turf field. For the,
We're working on a turf field.
yes.
Or whatever, what kind of turf, but we need to know where it is, because for the application.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
yeah. So that's that I want to say to you, because we just approved to authorize the city manager to send to you the first step for the application. And it's a $1 million.
$1 million,
grant.
yeah.
It's allowed. we need
It's
to
state
work
taxes
around.
coming back home.
Yes.
Not my money.
And the kids over here, they need that kind of field for safety issue, and all the school district and city around Peekskill, they have it. And we want to try to protect taxpayer, local taxpayer with that kind of funding, and another one that we're looking for. So I want to express really thank you for all your effort that you're doing.
Thank you. Well, you have to keep young people busy in the classroom, but you've got to keep them busy outside the classroom too, so that they have good things to do and they don't get into bad things to do. So that's our mission, right?
Yes, and talking about, the major said about the program, we need to work on that kind of program, even for physical activities, because the obesity and childhood obesity in Peekskill is too high. We have a 28% for obesity, and the counting is only 14%. So this is one of the good things about the turf and the track. It's going to be different proposals for keep obesity. So thank you.
Okay, there's actually a proposal by Westchester County, by the way, to raise the sales tax 1% in the communities that don't have the higher percentage. Yonkers has a higher percentage, White Plains, Vernon, I think the big cities do, but would raise it outside of those cities, so we would be paying it, but the money, the way Westchester County does their sales tax is a portion of it comes back to the municipality and a portion back to the school districts. And I know you might want to look at, I tend to think it was like an additional $1 million for Peekskill, I'm not sure. I know Cortland was about $1 million. And the school district in Hen Hud, I mean, they'd all benefit from it. But again, it would be a growth in the sales tax. Andrew, you're Putnam County, but you pay a higher tax in Putnam County already. So we've been one of the lower counties. So that's one of the considerations. And then it would go back to county government as well, to local and the school district. So that also can be helpful. Some people won't want that, the sales tax to go up. So, as I said before, there are pros and cons to everything that we do. So, but thank you.
Just
Thank
a
you.
last comment.
Yes.
We are, the entire council, all my colleagues, we approve resolution supporting the bill for the driver license. So we are glad that.
Oh, the license, okay.
Very good.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's very good. Anybody else that hasn't asked a question? That needs to ask a question. Okay, we just have a few more minutes, and so I'm going to call on you, and then we're done. Okay?
My question for you, I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but I've lived in New York for almost 70 years. I know you've been in New York for decades and decades.
I came here when I was 4.
I'm trying to figure out.
It has been decades.
I'm trying to figure out where we went wrong as a society, because I don't understand how we can live in a state where you can go to jail for killing a bald-headed eagle, but it's okay now to murder babies up to 9 months old. You don't see anything fundamentally wrong with that?
Well, I don't know about the bald eagle. I don't know about that. Actually, they were just doing Eagle Fest today.
Yes.
But under state law, it's a fetus, it's not a baby, and and again, it's a person doesn't have to do it if they don't want to. They don't have to have an abortion if they don't want to. and it's up to them, so I don't know.
So the
And
answer is
this
a
our
9-month-old
country.
baby is a fetus, that's the answer?
Well,
At 9 months.
it's up to a person's choice, and we're back to that. It's a choice, whatever your choice is. Okay, and one more.
Just a question about the repealing of two penal law, well, one penal law and another law. In penal law 125.15.
Speak up a little bit, I'm sorry.
Penal law 125.15 was repealed, and that has to do with manslaughter in the second degree. It is no longer going to be a felony, and subdivision 2 says if the person commits upon a female an abortional act which causes her death, unless such abortional act is justifiable pursuant of subdivision 3. So that was a felony, and then
We took it out of criminal law. Roe v. Wade was not in criminal law on a federal level. We took it out of criminal law on the state level because it was put in that in 1970. So we put it into the health law.
But
There's still criminal penalties for other,
But this is saying-
if somebody assaults or kills somebody who's pregnant, there are criminal activities for them. But it's not, it doesn't go to cover the fetus.
But this is saying if she dies, it's no longer a felony or manslaughter.
Oh, if she dies, yes, it is, absolutely.
It's
But it's
saying-
not that part of the law. It just changed the part of the law.
The penal law.
With Roe v. with the Reproductive Health Act, it does. But when people do things to people, that's all in the criminal law anyway. So, but it's just we just moved, I don't know, it's very technical.
So stabbing a woman in the stomach that's pregnant is a health violation.
No, that's a criminal. That's
That's what she said.
No, I didn't say that. I
Yeah,
said it's still a
you just
criminal law.
did.
But it's not, it's because they've done it to the woman. It's still a criminal, they're probably a
But he's
greater
aiming at the
penalty.
baby, so it's okay.
All right, I think we're going to finish up. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Contact me.
The warning facts on the law, we have only victims and the precise law over here. Read yourself. Read the sections for yourself. Over here, hold the bit. Don't be confused by the facts over here.